Thank you so much for joining us here at the Mercedes Lucke-Benedict Show. This is part 2 with KAYLA COX from 6 Miles to Supper. So stay tuned.
You were recently on when you were moving and traveling, and then the pandemic kind of shut everything down. What was that like when you were out on the road and all of that happened?
Yeah, so it was kind of the weirdest time of my life. It was such an uncertain time. Like, we were in Florida at the time, and everything was fine at first, but then we started to notice that, like, everything was shutting down, like even the state parks. So we had been in the habit of just staying in state parks. That was what we loved. We loved going to, out into nature. And so when we were in Florida and they announced the closure of all state parks, then we kind of were like, okay, now what are we going to do? Because, it was funny because on the news, they were trying to say, like, don't travel anywhere, don't do anything. Like, the government's telling you don't do that. But at the same time, they shut down all the parks. So it made it so that we had to travel to go find these different places to stay. So we ended up having to go into Georgia, and we were getting a little bit nervous because we weren't really sure how widespread will the closures be? Like, are they going to close down every state park in America? And there were even at one point there was some like gossip that they were going to shut down all the RV parks, like not for the people who actually permanently live there, but for travelers like us, like they would be like shut down. And so I was like, well, this is a terrible idea to be out on the road. So we ended up saying we were already kind of winding down anyway. Like in October of 2019, we started to say, I think we're probably done. It's been a really fun adventure, but we wanted to get back into, a house and have more of a just stable kind of life. So I think it was like April of 2020, we got into a permanent house, and we've enjoyed that lifestyle since then.
Yay! I think about that time and I'm like, I'm so glad we all made it. Some of us made it through it. And I hope that doesn't happen again. But what makes you think about, like, if you were to do it, like, we've seen how that can happen, it's scary. Anyway, we don't want to talk about yucky stuff.
Right.
I'd love to hear more about what are your plans for the future? Yeah, I see that you're doing a lot.
So my plans are, right now I'm actually working on 2 additional books. One is The Laid Back Guide to Weight Loss Maintenance, so just focusing on how to keep the weight off. And another one, The Laid Back Guide to Eating 1 Meal a Day, so OMAD. And those are the 2 nonfiction that I'm working on. And I'm also working on book 2 in my young adult fiction series, so the sequel to Escape from Olszek's Castle, which is kind of like middle grades, but I've had people who are adults read it and they enjoy it. It's just fantasy about a girl who she goes into this a different world. Basically, she discovers a different world, and so that's what I have in line for my books. And I'm also actually co-writing a cozy mystery series with my husband. And so we're doing that during kind of his off hours and stuff. So we're working on that. And then also just working on YouTube, trying to grow, I was going to say grow my audience, but really I just want to help people. So, and some people have told me that the videos have helped them. So, and so have the books. So that's just my plan, is just to keep doing more of that.
Well, I think that's a great plan. And, because it's like, you really just have a great way of just explaining it. And it's like the things that we all have gone through. I really feel like a lot of people don't maybe they're just not honest. Like, I don't know, like honest, like you're like, well, this is what happened. And we can't feel like really the things that people say. I think that's one of the things I really resonated to, because that's happened to me before a lot. And so that always stays in the back of your head. And I really feel like, that's kind of the enemy's voice back there saying, well, you are fat, you can this, you're always going to be that way. The older we get, like the older we get, the harder it started. I mean, I don't remember it being like that hard before. I mean, but when you get up to where you're, like 220 or whatever, then I think it's harder. But I do find that this intermittent fasting, oh my gosh. Okay, so they went from when I started listening to you. Okay, they had checked in. I was a 7.2. So then through the intermittent fasting process that I learned from you and Dr. Fung, maybe someday you'll get to be with Dr. Fung in an interview, because you guys are, and his assistant lady, his other lady too, is really great. But I went from that's from 7.2 to 6.3.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so that's a lot. And that was only the 3 months.
Wow.
So, yeah, and my doctor was shocked because she wanted me to be put on the medicine, and I want to, but it was after that I started. I had some family crises happening throughout this, and then around January of this year, it all started crashing on me, and I did like what you did at one point, where I just stopped. And the scale started coming back up, and then I went and had my blood sugar, and it had gone up to 6.7. So again, what I do is I will listen to you a lot. I read what you're saying, and I get the ones about the emotional eating, because that's it. And I like hearing you talk about your faith. I like that. It helps me. And so now had the last results. I was 5.9.
Oh, wow. All right. Congratulations.
I know. I was a 5.9, and the scale is going back down again. And so I guess I'm like 2 or 3 points. I thought it was already done, but I'm still in pre-diabetic.
Okay.
Because and now I've got one of these little monitor things on my arm that people wear, and I can see when my blood sugar goes up or down. So that's been fascinating. Now, I know that you do that. You do a lot of kind of monitoring and kind of trying different things. What do you feel about, I know you don't have diabetes or anything, but did you ever have to think about your sugars, or did you feel differently when you ate more sugar or things like that?
Well, actually, when I was pregnant with my third child, I failed the test, the gestational diabetes test. So it was a really small amount, though. It was like they changed the guideline, and so my fasting number, I failed. I had a 90 on the thing, and so it was like that was just like one too high or something like that. So through that process, I had to keep checking my blood sugar 3 times a day, postprandial numbers, throughout the rest of my pregnancy, which I hated doing. The little pricking of the finger 3 times a day. It was like, I hated it. It was so stressful. I get stressed out when in any medical thing, and so I was always a wreck during my pregnancies. I was worried the entire time about everything, and so, despite all that, my numbers were always good, though, even though at that time, I'm sure I was, up in the, probably 220 something. I would not look at the scale when I went to the doctor's office. I was like, I don't want to know. I just, you can weigh me, but I don't want to know the number. So,
that's how you feel, like you don't want to know. Okay, go ahead.
Yes. So my numbers were fine, though. And I remember at one point the midwife was like, "Why are you even having to check these?" And so I explained, what the deal was. But so I've never, as far as I know, had blood sugar issues. It's not something that I monitor. Although I did get an email a few weeks ago from a place. They're like, they'll send me like one of those monitor, like a continuous monitor, and if I wanted to talk about it on my channel. So I thought, I don't know, like I tend to be the type of person who I can take things too far. You know what I mean? Like I can like really get like obsessed about like, oh, what's my blood pressure? What's it doing right now? What's my pulse and all this stuff? And so I try to like say, okay, like there was a time in our history not too long ago when we didn't know any of these numbers and we were okay. so yeah, I just try to eat the right amount and make sure my weight stays in check and, feeling good and healthy overall. That's my like, I guess my definition of health.
I think that's great. And you've kept your weight off for how many years now?
So I got down to my initial weight of like 158, 157 at the end of 2016. And so I maintained that for a year before I started my YouTube channel. And once I started my YouTube channel, I was like, well, I'm still technically like 4 pounds overweight. And so I thought I need to like, if I'm going to talk about weight loss, like I have to be like, like at a normal weight, which that, like now I think that is so silly. Like what, like I didn't need to lose more, like in the big scheme of things. And I feel like even if I was overweight and talking about these things, I'd still lost that, like initial 65 pounds that qualifies me to talk about these things. But I thought, well, I wanted to lose a little bit more. So I lost down to like 142 and that took me about another year. So it was like the end of 2018. So that would have been like, say like 5 years ago at this point. And so I decided at that point, like I've lost plenty of weight. Like I don't need to lose more. I knew that, like in the past, I had never let myself be satisfied with any weight. Like it was like never enough. Like if I got down to 130, it was like, that's not enough. I got like, and I would think, well, I need to be down at 125 or whatever. And I never could stay there. So then I would end up, like gaining the weight back and then feeling really bad. And so when I got down to 142, I was like, I feel good here. And I felt good at 158. So I feel like I've hit that range that I can be at and be healthy. And so my maintenance goal has been to try to maintain in the 140s. And there have been times where my weight has gone up into like the low 150s. And when that happens, I just say, okay, I got to get back onto that plan and then get myself back down into the 140s. And that's how I handle maintenance. It's, a process of just sticking where I'm trying to be. So.
Very good. And I'm glad you're making a new book on that then.
Yeah, it's kind of in some ways, it's a lot easier to maintain, I think. Like, you don't have to be, like, you can be really loosey-goosey, I have found, as long as you just continue to weigh yourself, like, as long as you don't stick your head back in the sand and go back to doing all the things that got you to that place where you're obese in the first place, you're going to be okay. But it is easy for the bad habits to come back in. And I think that's a part of it is, staying humble and remembering the spiritual lessons of like, you still need God for all this. And, you might think you got this licked and then something happens, during this time of maintenance, I lost my grandmother, my granny, and also my father-in-law. He had dementia, and so there were periods of time where I was staying with him to watch after him and stuff, and that was a very, very stressful time. And just learning, like, I still have plenty of work left to do on this journey of, because when you have been an emotional eater, I feel like it's a very tricky thing because you have to eat, like you might quit smoking and you never have to necessarily ever come into contact with a cigarette ever in your life. Like you just don't have to deal with that. But with eating, you have to keep eating. So it's a very tricky process, I think, to always make sure you're, like, how are you supposed to eat, even if you're feeling emotional and not emotionally eat, and so there's a lot to it.
That's a great point, because there's always food, you all have to eat. And I'm so sorry about your family members I remember hearing about that, and I bless your hearts. That's just.
Yeah, thank you.
But so I know, but you made it through that. Even so that just shows you how I think God just, this is your path. You're here with me. I want to also talk. I was just on your website, and I was thinking about doing this. So, you have the. I don't know if you still have it. If it's open right now, the Slow and Steady Success Academy.
Yeah, I don't currently have that open right now, and that was a thing that was happening. I had some courses set up, and I think they were helpful. But the thing that I found was that a lot of times people would buy the course and then they would never go through it. And so then I kind of started to feel like, well, yes, I can make money from this, but I wanted it to be helpful. I really want people to, if they're going to buy something, I want them to stick with it. And so I'm still searching for that right way where I can provide these things and help people. And it's just a thing where I wasn't quite sure how to really integrate that so that it is a helpful thing, that it's something that people will go through and get value from.
I like that idea. And so, but that makes sense to me. But you know what? Every day that you do this, you're doing that. So we do learn from you that way. I don't know, maybe there's just a different way to put that together.
Yeah.
I really love that idea. I was actually thinking of doing it, but I use your videos as my guide.
Oh,
so that's a beautiful way to do it. Okay, I really think we're probably gotten to where the hour has come. And is there anything else that you wanted to share about your journey before we close?
I think that just to say that it is a journey, and if you can always just give yourself some grace and say, I'm human. I'm never going to be perfect at this. I mean, learning that one lesson that I am not perfect, and talk about a spiritual lesson. It's like, you're not perfect. You're always gonna make mistakes as part of being human, and I'm always trying to remember that. But then to also at the same time try to improve. Try to get a little bit better with my eating, like taking a little bit more time with it, or being a little bit more grateful for it, and trying to just always improve just a little bit each day.
And part of what you say is to actually just be really calm and quiet and not have any distractions during the eating window. I think but if you eat with your family, do you still do that, or is that because you have your family then? So
right, yeah, the family's the one distraction, but we don't have any screens or anything like that. No phones at the table, no screens at the table. It's just sitting down and eating and talking and sharing about our day.
I love that. See, and that's just a great message for everybody to learn. And I thank you so much for being here with us today. Could you share how people can find you, reach you, share that with us?
Sure. So you can visit my website, 6milestosupper.com, and I've got lots of resources on there, free worksheets and things like that to help you on the weight loss journey. You can check out my YouTube channel, 6 Miles to Supper. You can also check out my podcast wherever you get your podcast, and I also have a newsletter. If you'd like to sign up for that, you can do so on my website, 6milestosupper.com/newsletter. And let's see, what else? Oh, and you can also keep up with me as an author by visiting my author website, which is KAYLACOX.net.
Oh, great. I didn't know that. Okay, that's a good one. Well, thank you so much, KAYLA Cox.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have this conversation. And I hope every single person, because I know that we get people from all over the world that listen to the show. Thank you. So I hope everybody reaches out and buys your books and watches you. And be sure when you watch her, make sure you comment, make sure you share on YouTube. It's so important to help build everybody's channel, and we need KAYLA's channel to be built. We need books to be sold. We need the world to find out about you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm just catching on. So thank you so much, Kayla. So much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mercedes.
Thank you so much for joining us here on the show, streaming live on Spreaker and the web radio network. This is the Mercedes Lucke-Benedict Show. You can find me on Facebook and YouTube. Please enjoy my music.
Every time that I've ever been knocked down, every time that I've ever gotten back up to face another round, I let go of my fear and put my pride down. I'm building my castle in heaven, climbing over mountains with the lessons I've been given. I'm building my castle in heaven. My castle is not made of mortar or stone. My castle is made from the seeds that I've sown. I'm building castles in heaven. Every challenge, every mistake, every time that I choose faith, I grow strong. I keep moving on and on and on. And I'm building my castle in heaven. I'm climbing over mountains of lessons I've been given. I'm building my castle in heaven. My castle is not made of mortar or stone. My castle is made from the seeds that I've sown. I'm building castles in heaven. Every moment, every day, every word that you say, every step along your way, every time that you make a mistake. Every good deed that you do, each time that you win, each time that you lose, each time that you walk in another shoe. For it is on this earth where we grow strong, when we learn to forgive and we right our wrongs. It's here